Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning. I suppose you mentioned in your opening statement around your colleagues' involvement in the North's Fiscal Commission, which was established by Minister Conor Murphy. I mean, the report produced by the Fiscal Commission recommended 23 different changes around further fiscal devolution for the North. So what extent does the lack of fiscal autonomy impact on the economy in the North and across the island? And I suppose in some way connected to that, you've done recent comparative research on the labour markets in both North and South, and it indicates that there's significantly lower employment rates in the North. I suppose, to what extent is the result of the inability of the executive to tailor-make financial interventions, impact on employment rates? I know there's many factors that impact on it, and you probably have identified quite a number of them. I'm just wondering, in relation to the fiscal autonomy in the North, how it impacts.
Thanks very much. I think on the Fiscal Commission, it did recommend a devolution of income taxes as being the most, recommended them as being the most appropriate for devolution at this point. But I think your point, the point you mentioned there about the effect of not having fiscal devolution in terms of the executive and then the economy of Northern Ireland, I think is one point that maybe didn't get as much comment at the time, and I think it is the most important point. I think to a certain extent you have a Northern Ireland executive which is responsible for a huge amount of government spending, a lot of that being tied to money that's used for economic development. Now, for a normal government, what you would have in that situation is sort of a virtuous circle, or virtuous cycle, that a government spends money on industrial development, it makes the investments, the economy grows, productivity increases, and therefore tax revenues increase, and that flows back into the government. And that kind of gives the right incentive structure for a government to carry out those policies. I think the lack of that kind of feedback loop into the executive has led to some very bad decision making, particularly on the industrial development front. There was recently a report into Invest Northern Ireland and its performance over the last number of years. And I would encourage anybody to read that report, because it paints a very bleak picture of what actual impact government interventions on economic development have had in Northern Ireland. There's actually research coming from Queen's University as well, looking at management practices, which goes into further details on that. But to my mind, it's, the benefits of fiscal devolution is making that the state of the economy in Northern Ireland is directly impacting on the executive itself, because I think too often, announcements from Invest Northern Ireland and others where, X number of jobs were created here, and we never talked about the ones that were lost, or we never talked about the overall change. The debate about economic development was quite immature, and it's immature because of the powers that are available to the executive on that. So, to my mind, that would be the biggest prize from fiscal devolution. On the labour market, absolutely, the report in question, it's one of these very annoying things if you're an economist, about the Northern Ireland Statistics and Research Agency obviously being a part of the broader UK statistical structure, reporting labour market statistics slightly differently to how they're produced by the Central Statistics Office down here. And sometimes the differences can be very minor, but sometimes they're big enough to affect a change in what the performance is between the two labour markets. So, I mean, the one that I like to highlight is economic inactivity. We talk about it the other way down here. We talk about labour force participation. Those who are actively out, either in work or looking for work. For years, we've talked about it in Northern Ireland. This economic inactivity is the biggest drag on Northern Ireland, and it is, and it's something we should talk about, because when we compare it to other UK regions, it's terrible. But then when we look and we adjust the figures in the Republic of Ireland so they're comparable to what they are in Northern Ireland, the Republic of Ireland is actually, up until just before the pandemic, has had very similar, almost exactly similar rates of economic inactivity, but it was never given the same kind of prominence down here. But it's one area where the two labour markets are actually much more alike each other and very different to other UK regions. But we've had separate conversations about it, but that's one where we actually kind of need to bring the conversation together, I think.